Hello and welcome to Live from Paris Tonight. I'm Belle Lupton. It's 10 p.m. here in the French capital. Here are the headlines. The University of California in lockdown after a fatal shooting leaves 2 dead. Police say it's likely one of those dead is the killer. An underwater breakthrough. Search teams pick up signals from one of the black boxes of EgyptAir Flight 804. Investigators now have 2 weeks to recover the important flight recorders before they switch off. And French footballer Karim Benzema strikes out at his national team coach, accusing him of racism in his decision not to select him as part of the Euro 2016 French squad. Also coming up on the programme, in business, the head of the OECD calls on French strikers to stop and allow government reforms to go through. And we'll be taking you on a trip through the world's longest and deepest tunnel deep in the Swiss Alps. It's taken 17 years to build and it opened today to much fanfare. We begin in the States, where 2 people have been confirmed dead in a shooting at the University of California. The campus is still on lockdown and dozens of police officers are standing by. A team in tactical gear stormed into the building earlier. Details still coming in, but Los Angeles police say it's likely one of those dead could be the shooter. For more on this, let's cross live now to our correspondent, Naibi Reynoso, who joins us on the phone from Los Angeles. Naibi, what's the latest in this case? What are you hearing?
Well, there was just a press conference, and after the nearly 2-hour ordeal, the Los Angeles Police Chief Charlie Beck did confirm that the shooter was in fact one of the 2 men killed inside a small office at UCLA's engineering building. So the incident is now being classified as a murder-suicide. There are no more threats and the campus is safe. So all of the students that were in lockdown inside the buildings are now walking outside, walking freely, making those phone calls to their parents, letting them know that the ordeal is over and that they're safe. And a UCLA press release confirmed that the situation is now contained. And they also, well, they have 43,000 students, just to give you an idea of how big UCLA is. Many were taking their finals this week. Graduation is on Friday. UCLA did confirm that classes are canceled for the rest of the day, but they're expected to resume tomorrow. Again, no outstanding suspects. The situation has been contained, and now this is being investigated as a murder-suicide, and the LAPD homicide units are going to take it over.
Naibi Reynoso, thank you very much for that update, and I'm sure we'll be coming back to you for more later on. But next, we're going to move on to Egypt and the EgyptAir flight, where the crucial black boxes the search for those crucial black boxes may soon be over. Earlier, a French search vessel picked up signals from one of the 2 flight recorders that plunged into the Mediterranean with the plane when it crashed. It's a breakthrough because the information in those black boxes offers the best chance of piecing together what happened in the plane's final moments before it crashed, killing all 66 people on board. But search teams have to work quickly. Flight recorders are only designed to emit signals for 30 days after a crash. Sanam Chantier reports.
One step closer to finding one of 2 black boxes from EgyptAir Flight 804. According to France's Aviation Accident Bureau, it was La Place, a French ship that picked up signals from deep under the Mediterranean Sea. Investigators are now awaiting diving specialists to retrieve the device. The latest development has raised hopes that the plane's flight data and cockpit voice recorders could be retrieved. If the black box is found within 30 days of the crash, it could shed light on what caused it, though detailed analysis of the data could take up to weeks. The jet vanished from the radar while en route from Paris to Cairo on May the 19th. Prior to its disappearance, it had suddenly veered left, then right, spinning all the way around and plummeting some 12,000 meters into the sea. There are indications smoke filled the cabin shortly before it disappeared from radar. All 66 passengers and crew on board were killed. Since the crash, some debris and body parts have been recovered, while the bulk of the plane is believed to be deep under the sea. Investigators have said it's too soon to determine what caused the disaster, although a terror attack has not been ruled out.
That report from Sanam Chantier. Next, the Syrian town of Daraya has received its first delivery of humanitarian aid since a government siege began nearly 4 years ago. Daraya was one of the first towns in Syria to erupt in protests against the government in 2012, and so far the regime has refused to allow aid into the town, despite appeals from its residents. The UN estimates up to 8,000 people are still living in the town. Earlier, we heard from our correspondent Adam Pletz, who's in Beirut, and he gave us the details about this aid convoy.
Well, this is the suburb of Daraya, southwest of Damascus, which is rebel-held but under government siege. It hasn't had any aid delivered since late 2012, so some 3.5 years. What we understand is that the aid that's being delivered now is mostly medical in nature, vaccinations being cited amongst other things. What they'll most likely be doing, or what they normally do, certainly in the first occasion that they've been allowed into an area after a long period of time, is that they'll carry out assessments with experts, medical, nutritional and logistical experts, to try and work out what can best be done in that particular area. Every area has specific needs. But it's worth noting that this is one of the areas that aid agencies have asked for access to repeatedly, culminating in an attempted convoy on May the 12th that got all the way to the last hurdle, the last government checkpoints around this suburb, and was then turned back. So there'll be considerable relief among the civilians still trapped there, as you said, 4,000 to 8,000 people, that this convoy at long last has actually made it through.
Our correspondent Adam Pletz reporting from Beirut there. And an estimated 20,000 children trapped in the Iraqi city of Fallujah this time are facing a dire humanitarian situation and possible recruitment by the Islamic State organisation. That's according to the UN, which has called on both sides in the battle to grant children safe passage out. In total, 50,000 civilians are thought to be trapped in the Sunni-majority city, which is the site of what's expected to be the biggest battle yet in Iraq's fight against IS. Iraqi forces are a week into their operation to recapture Fallujah, backed by US airstrikes and Shia militias. Fighting has been continuing with fierce clashes in the city's south. French football player Karim Benzema has hit out at Didier Deschamps, suggesting that the national team coach has bowed to the pressure of a racist part of France, his words, by leaving him out of the Euro 2016 squad. The French Football Federation, and indeed several politicians, have reacted with criticism and dismissal of Benzema's claims. Well, for more on this, let's talk to Eric Biel-Deman, a journalist at L'Équipe, a French sports magazine. He joins us on the phone. And Eric, as early as November last year, when Benzema was put under investigation for blackmail, Deschamps told newspapers it would be impossible for him to select the striker, with this case still hanging over him. So is his decision now in April just a continuation of that intent, or is there something more sinister going on?
In fact, we were expecting during the early stage of winter last year that Benzema might have been able to play for France due to the fact that the judge have authorized Mathieu Valbuena and Karim Benzema to meet each other, and there was a kind of hope at a certain stage. But it became more and more obvious when it was made public exactly what was in the justice documents, what was against Karim Benzema, that for moral, in terms of morality reason, Benzema to play for France in a French competition on the European stage was very, very damaging in terms of the image of the French national team.
And can you give us just a bit of an update, because for the audience at home, on the controversies that's been surrounding Benzema, because this isn't the first time there's been controversy surrounding him. You know, he didn't sing the national anthem during one time. Obviously, that blackmail case. Could you just give our audience a little bit more detail on that?
He's a player who has been for ages under kind of controversy. The first one, he was not part of the squad of France in the 2010 World Cup. At the time, Raymond Domenech, the former manager, didn't want him. He had the feeling that he was a kind of individual who could maybe put some negative flavor in the team. Then we realized that we had so many players to put negative flavor. Remember the nice situation at the World Cup with a French player on strike. And then coming back on Benzema, he's a fantastic player with Real Madrid. He's not as good when he plays for France. So the debate was, shall we need whatever is the price, Benzema? And then the fact that he doesn't sing the Marseillaise. Platini, when he was a player, was not singing the Marseillaise. But nowadays, every single behavior of a single player with the social media, with the TV scrutiny on every single minute makes that an individual...
Eric, I'm so sorry to have to cut you off, but I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. We're all out of time. Thank you very much, though, for your commentary on that case of French football player who is angry that he was not chosen for the Euro 2016 squad. That was Eric Bieldeman, a journalist at L'Équipe, a sports newspaper here in France. Now, European leaders have been in the Alps. They were there for a train ride. But this isn't any ordinary ride because it took them through the longest and the deepest rail tunnel in the world. The tunnel in Switzerland was officially opened earlier after 17 years of construction. François Hollande was there, along with Angela Merkel and Matteo Renzi. Clément Bonnereau gives us the details on this $10 billion project.
It's been described as the project of the century. Politicians and religious figures flocked from all over Europe to inaugurate the Gotthard base tunnel in Switzerland, with 600 dancers and actors putting on a show for the occasion. When it opens in December, it will be the world's longest and deepest rail tunnel.
At a time when countries around the world are building walls, today Switzerland is given a very beautiful signal by building this tunnel and thus giving opportunities for people from all over Europe to meet.
The 57-kilometre tunnel links the cities of Erzfeld and Bodio in Switzerland and runs 2.3 kilometres under the mountain at its deepest point. It will provide a high-speed rail link under the Alps between northern and southern Europe, reducing the journey time between Zurich and Milan to just 2 hours and 40 minutes. The tunnel cost around €10.7 billion and took 17 years to complete, employing 2,600 people, 9 of whom died during the work.
In France, we've always been passionate about trains and tunnels. Let's remember that the Eurotunnel was a great adventure for us and the United Kingdom. The Saint-Gothard tunnel is no doubt the most extraordinary tunnel one could ever have imagined.
About 240 freight trains and 65 passenger trains will go through the tunnel every day. Economic benefits are expected to include the easier movement of goods and increased tourism.
That's Clément Bonnereau there. Now, she's Hollywood's most iconic star, and today would have been her 90th birthday. But Marilyn Monroe didn't make it to old age. She died unexpectedly at 36 years old. Now, a museum in northern Italy is celebrating Marilyn's life by opening an exhibition lifting the lid on the actress's personal belongings. Clothes, makeup, letters, contracts and photographs all on show. They come from her California home and they were left to her teacher, Lee Strasberg. The collection now belongs to German collector and Marilyn fan Ted Stampfer, though. He bought them at an auction and lent them for this show. You're watching France 24. Let's get you up to date with our top stories. The University of California in lockdown after a fatal shooting leaves 2 dead. Police say it's likely one of those dead is the killer. An underwater breakthrough. Search teams pick up signals from one of the black boxes of EgyptAir Flight 804. Investigators now have 2 weeks to recover the important flight recorders before they switch off. And a first delivery of humanitarian aid in 4 years for the besieged Syrian town of Daraya. But aid agencies deplore the lack of food being delivered to the 8,000 inhabitants trapped there. Let's take a look at business now, and I'm joined by Marcus in the studio. Hello, Marcus.
Hi there, Belle.
And first up, the French government is facing a call to stay the course in the face of those protests and strikes that we've been talking about.
Yeah, and that call comes from the head of the OECD, or the Organization